Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of these little guys right here. This is the Leaf razor, and this is the Leaf Twig razor. These are two razors for daily shaving of your face and your legs and your other bits that are available from the Leaf Shaving Company. But first off, before I go any further, I want to thank my Patreon patrons who make it possible for me to see something that's in an area I review and go, yeah, let me check that out. Sounds interesting. You make the channel possible. You mean the world to me. Thank you, patrons. Next thing, let's do some size comparison. First off, here we are against a Spyderco Delica, as is tradition for the channel. But more importantly, here it is against this is a feather slant bar razor. Here you can see a standard razor blade right here in its little packaging there. Here, I'll go ahead and I'll open it up there. Actually, no, not yet. But nonetheless, there is that. And what we see here is that these are not particularly, they're not particularly small. And especially this guy, this is kind of a beefcake, right? This has a very, very big head to it. So there is that. Next thing, what are these two things? Well, these are two very, very different razors. This one is the Twig down here, and this is the Leaf. And both of them are razors that use a half blade. These are razors that use safety razor blades, but they use exactly one half of it. And I'll show you what that looks like right here. These are some of the ones, they include actually helpfully a set of kind of cut razor blades that are actually of decent quality, right? They're not the, oh my God, sharpest things in the world, but they include blades that look like this so that you can take it. And here, I'll try and pop this open real quick for you on camera so you can see. I'll put the blade down so you can see me do this like a normal human. And then what you do is you grab the blade itself, come here, blade, and you lay it down such that these little tabs go in there, and it actually has a little magnet in there that keeps it in place, which is kind of a neat little trick, and then tighten it closed. And in fact, for the big guy, it works almost identically, except in this case, you loosen this screw in the back, which is captive, which is nice, and then you can put in one blade here, you can put in one blade here, and one blade here, meaning that you have three different blades, and then close the top bit and screw the whole thing shut again. And so that's how you load it full. So anyways, you've got the Twig down here, which is the small guy, coming in at $60 right now, as of, let's see here, October 2022. Then you got the Leaf, which is by Leaf, which is a little confusing, which is $85. And then finally, I'm going to do a very quick review here because, well, yeah. So let's go on ahead and talk about what's good and what's ugly about these guys. And no, that wasn't a verbal typo. So on the good side, to start with, it is 100% the correct answer to use a razor blade using razor, right? That is the right approach, because if you're using cartridge-based razors, you are overpaying, and if you're using electrics, you're not getting as good a shave as you should, right? The shave is just better when you move to a conventional double-edge razor blade, or single-edge for that matter. And the cost per shave is way, way lower, right? You can get a blade like this that'll last you 2 or 3 weeks, potentially, for 25 cents, as opposed to $3 for one of the Mach 18 messes out there, right? And most importantly, it is much more environmentally sound than using those plastic things. These are just single pieces of metal that you can throw away after you're done, and that's okay, as opposed to throwing away a bunch of plastic, a bunch of blades, etc. It is more economical. You are getting a better shave. There is no reason at all, if you are watching this video, that you should ever use one of the multi-blade razors that is where you buy off-the-shelf cartridges or the disposables. This is just better, flat out, for you, for the world, for everything. So this is the right approach, and I'm glad to see more people entering the space of these, right? Of using metal-based replaceable blade razor blades. That's just better. Next thing, although they do offer those kinds of half blades out of the box, they come with a little box of them. These are the same thing as the conventional standard razor blades. This little feather blade right here, it is very easy, actually, and it's best to do this when the package is, kind of when the paper is there. But more importantly, you can kind of just crack it right like this, right? If I wanted to do this, I could go ahead and crack this in half. I'm not going to, because frankly, I prefer mine to have two sides, and I'm going to put it in this guy when I'm done. But nonetheless, you can crack a conventional razor blade in half with absolutely no problem and use it. So if you have a brand of razor blade that you prefer, you can use it with these razors. That's a very nice thing. And also, as a result, you're not vendor locked in, right? So many people, oh, well, we made our own razor blade. Like, no, that's stupid. Don't do that. right? Just use the blade that use the blade that everybody does, and so that's great. The pivoting head on this guy, on the Leaf, this is the thing that works best about this razor. This makes it much easier, coupled with the little bit of guard on the top here, well, frankly, the whole bunch of guard on the top here, it makes it very easy to get the right angle as you're shaving, right? This is completely foolproof, right? And both of these are relatively safe. You know, a safety razor, despite having the name safety razor, it is much easier to cut yourself with a safety razor than with one of those Mach 15 sorts of affairs. But both of these guys make it very easy, right? They have nice, strong guides for it. In this case, you know, it's held at exactly the right angle. These are pretty well designed for protecting you from the blade, so to speak. You are much less likely to accidentally nick or cut yourself using one of these guys relative to one of a more aggressive double-edged razor blade. And, you know, it's to the extent where I actually gave one of these guys to my wife. I gave this guy to my wife to try, you know, just using on her legs, and to her it felt like any other razor, which is good. She doesn't use a double edge, despite my best efforts. And so this is the first one that's using, you know, disposable blades that just felt like any other razor. And so that's a nice thing. It is also very, very easy to swap the blade. Like I showed you, you just unscrew the thing on the back here, or unscrew this whole thing, and it's very straightforward to get in there and dispose of that, which is a beautiful thing. And I gotta say, the Twig, the very best part of either of these is that this little guy right here is very good for getting into tight spaces, because if you look at the head of it, right, there is a great deal more metal going on the top of this guy than there is on the top of this guy. And so as a result, if you're trying to get into a tight corner, right, if you're trying to get right in under your nose, if you're trying to get in a place where you don't have a whole lot of room to maneuver things, and especially when the other side of things has a razor blade on it, this can be very nice. The Twig is very, very good for maneuvering into tight areas, and that is a benefit that this guy has over any other razor I've tried. That's a nice thing, generally speaking, and that's frankly the thing that makes this exceptional. So to me, all of that is the good, is that this particular guy here is good for getting into tight spaces. Blade swaps are very easy. Both are relatively safe and make it a little bit easier than some to get started with single blade razor shaving. Well, in this case, 3 single blades. We'll get there. The pivoting head works very well on this guy, and it takes standard blades rather than trying some dumb vendor lock-in. And using a razor blade-based razor is simply the best approach. On the ugly front, you know, I jump right past the bad, because there are a few little tiny issues here, like this part traps soap scum a little bit. This is a little bit bottom-heavy, but that's not really an issue. These are both defined by 2 big, ugly problems. First one, the Leaf. Unfortunately, this razor is flat out ruined by this portion. The reason I say that is that with this guy, the cutting edges, the razor blades themselves, the highest of the blades is going to be at about this height. And then above that, you have a full-on here. Let's go on ahead and measure. You have about 1 centimeter, maybe a little bit more, maybe half an inch worth of space that is doing absolutely nothing as you are shaving. And as a result, you can only get about 1/2 inch away from any 3-dimensional thing. If you are shaving your nose, this is unable to get, you can't shave your upper lip with this, because unless your mustache starts 1/2 inch below your nose, because this damn forehead is so very, very large, right? This is really, really tough. And I get it at some level, right? Because in order to fit one of these little blades into this space, they need to have that top forehead, right? That makes sense. But unfortunately, it means that this just doesn't work for me. I tried this guy twice, and each time it was just like, I can't use this to shave most of my face. I needed to shave part of my face with this and then come in with this or another reasonably designed razor. It just didn't work. And I figured, okay, well, hold on. You know, this isn't working well for the face, but maybe this is designed for other folks. So I gave it to my wife. I said, honey, next time you shave your legs, you know, why don't you give this guy a shot, right? And even for her, she complained about the same issue unprompted. She said, it's really hard to get this guy into areas where, like, you run up against things and then it just doesn't want to shave. And this, to me, makes me think that, like, yeah, this is just a busted design. Maybe it's good for shaving your forehead or your back or something like that. I don't know. But they need to go back to the drawing board and figure out a way to do this without that top forehead area. It would be an amazing way to transition people away from safety razor, or I'm sorry, away from the cartridge razors and into actual razor blades. That would be a great thing. But unfortunately, although this is a nice idea, this forehead area just kills this razor. It does not work well for shaving the face or apparently shaving the legs or any other bits of you. And so I cannot recommend this razor at any price until that issue is fixed. It is just fundamentally flawed for shaving humans. The Twig, on the other side, the ugly issue here is the price, and it is not nearly as ugly, right? The Leaf is also overpriced, just to be clear. This is $85, but you know what? If this worked really well, then I could totally pay that. I could see it. The Twig here is $60, and that's not the end of the world, right? It's a nice piece of kit, generally speaking, and it could actually be recommendable in some situations for more detailed work, right? If you need to get into tight regions, this could work well. But it's coming in about $20 higher than the competition. Even at the highest of 2022 inflation pricing, this is still $20 higher than a Merkur Mark 34, right? And it is $10 higher than the Merkur Slant Bar. And I gotta be real with you here. This razor is just better than this one in every respect except that detail thing. There may be some tiny situations in which this is slightly better, but in every other situation, this guy, the Merkur Slant, or just the plain Merkur, just gives, in my estimation, in my opinion, a better shave. And so it is not better enough to justify a $20 price hike over the baseline. And that one use case of detail work is not enough to merit, spending that extra money and putting up with a slightly lesser shave the rest of the time. So to me, that's what's ugly is for the Twig, the price, and for the Leaf. Oh, I don't know what they were thinking up here, but that's just a no. So final conclusion front, I'm actually very disappointed, right? I picked these guys up. Actually, I'm trying to remember if it was a patron or a random jackass by email, but somebody messaged me and said, Nick, you should check these razors out. They look really interesting. And indeed, they are really interesting, right? The idea of recreating the kind of shave that a lot of people are used to in an environmentally sustainable way, giving them a multi-blade shave that you really don't have to think about, using environmentally sound methods and these kinds of blades is great. It's a wonderful idea. But unfortunately, the Leaf here feels like a product that spent more time in design than in use. I just don't know how this went through the entire process, through the entire testing, quality control, and nobody said to them, guys, this is a problem, right? Maybe it was done entirely by people with big beards, so they're only shaving their cheek, and in that case, this makes sense, right? I guess, and there may be use cases I'm not thinking about for this, right? Maybe that's the only thing, maybe there's some weird use for this, and that's the only thing that the company's entire leadership team does with a razor, and therefore this seemed like a good idea, but it doesn't work with any face that I can imagine, right? Unless you do not have a nose. If you are Voldemort, this is going to be a great razor for you. But then, although even still, the ears are going to be... Anyways, I digress. That is a problem. This, unfortunately, is a very hard pass. Frankly, it's the hardest pass I've had in a while, because it just plain doesn't do the job. So absolutely cannot recommend that. The Twig, though, is a tougher call. As at some level, it's a fine razor that works fine. If somebody came up to me and said, Nick, this is your last razor. This is the only razor you can use for the rest of your life. I would be a little grumpy about that. I'd be a little frustrated because I would get a little lesser shaves than I get with some of the other stuff I have. But the thing is, it works well enough that this could be my one razor, and for many people, it very easily could be. And it works well, and I would move on, right? But the thing is, you can get a slightly better razor for $20 cheaper in Merkur's Mark 34, Mark 35, that is. And you can get a just plain better one, the Merkur Slant Bar, for $10 more, right? When I decided I was finished reviewing this guy and could stop using it on my face, I switched back to this guy or to my Feather Ray SD2, and it was just like, oh yeah, this is better. I like that more, right? So, unfortunately, there may be moments where this shines, and in fact, I'll keep it it around because of that incredibly small head, right? For those rare moments where you really need a tiny little space, then that could be great. But those moments are rare, and especially when you add in the fact that this is a very bottom-heavy razor and there are better shaves elsewhere, I don't think this is worth spending the extra money on. So there might be folks in situations where this is the right approach. If you do a lot of a shaving that, well, requires that kind of fine detail, then you know what? This could be great, right? The price could be okay. But if you are just looking for a razor to shave your face with, this is not where I would send you. So overall, final conclusion, wet shaving is a great idea, right? Using actual products, using actual razor blades is good. It's better environmentally. It gives you better shaves. And this is a much better approach than, you know, buying one of the cartridge messes for sure. And there is some neat engineering in both of these that I think could be enhanced with some iteration, some revision, etc., and some reduction in cost potentially. But for now, as much as I badly wanted to like both of these, I'm afraid that I do have to recommend that you leave both of these guys behind. So there you go. Hope this has been interesting to you and that you have yourselves an absolutely wonderful rest of the day. Leaf, I love the ideas here. Iterate, and you'll probably have some gems after a little while. And if you can do this without the forehead, by God, that's going to be amazing. So hope this has been interesting to you. Have an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.